Yamaha lovers, we got you covered. 2025 YZ450FX mods for you right now. This is part 2. If you haven't seen part 1 of our initial thoughts on this great bike, go check it out. This video is about some basic mods we're gonna do to try to make this bike even better. All right, first thing, obviously, we're missing the suspension. No forks, no shock. We'll give you some tips on how we put that stuff back on. Race Tech did the suspension for us, trying to get it a little bit more plush, especially on that chattery stuff. We're gonna inspect the grease on our triple clamp before we put our forks on. We're gonna swap out the gearing. We've talked to a few people and learned that the 1452 is a better combo than the stock 13, and I think it's 50. So we're gonna go 1452, give us a little bit broader use of that first gear especially, help out some of those gaps in the gearing. That's what we're hoping to accomplish. The stock chain's probably gonna be too short, so we're gonna put on a new front and new rear sprocket chain. We'll give you those tips in this video as well. The next one is this beast right here, that clutch. It's a lot of bike to manage. So when you're having to pull the clutch in a lot, you're getting worn out, especially in a couple-hour ride. I've had a couple people comment and write us talking about wanting to test out the hydraulic clutch. That's what we're gonna do as well. We got the GYTR hydraulic clutch to test out on this bike straight away. We've also noticed what some of the factory race teams are doing on the Yamahas with their engine hangers down here. We're gonna do a few little mods. In the first video, we took off the little plate. We're also now gonna drill a different hole and set it up a little bit differently. We'll give you those tips as well. That's supposed to help the handling of the bike. Those are the main things we're gonna tackle. Let's get to work. Okay, so we got everything done. Gearing, suspension's on. We did our little mods to the engine hangers down there. Not sure how much I'm gonna be able to tell that, but we're gonna test it out when we get out to our riding spot. We got our hydraulic clutch installed. It's all seeming pretty cool so far. One bolt test. We're excited to get you our thoughts on this bike. So we're gonna put the tech part of this video at the end, after we give you our thoughts. So we'll have the timestamps right up here on the screen for each of the items that we talked about and give you good tips for. We gotta have 33 different tech tips on this thing with all of them combined. So go check out those tech tips at the end. We're gonna get you right to our thoughts on all these mods and what it did for this YZ450FX. Okay, that's really cool.
Yep.
We got 2 days of riding on all those mods. Not 2 full days, but 2 little days.
Yep.
We got to test all that stuff out, and it went really good. Okay, first thing we're gonna talk about is one of the easiest things is the gearing. I think that gearing made a substantial difference, and I'm looking forward to trying it when we get into the tight trails, like what you just rode, but even more tight. Like in the summertime, I wanna get up in those tight trails.
Yep.
But now I think when I get stuck, I can use that first gear. I'm gonna be able to use it, and it's gonna be a lot more usable than it was.
Yes, I got into some rocky stuff, as you guys can see right here, of kind of just having to go real slow in first and second gear and just have the clutch like halfway pulled in. And before with the cable clutch, I couldn't really do that. But now with this gearing and the cable clutch combined, it does really well on those trails.
Okay.
That brings us to that next thing.
Well, yeah, and the gearing, it helps us carry second and third like on the trail.
Oh, yeah.
So you can carry the gears way longer. Okay, and then Spencer was skipping ahead to the hydraulic clutch. Really like that. I don't think there was any place I didn't like it. The only things I've heard from a few guys is maybe it's not going to be as good on the starts. We'll have to see about that. We're not racing, so
for me, it's not going to be an issue.
It's not going to be a matter.
Yeah.
We like the hydraulic clutch feel. It doesn't make it magically softer. It's softer.
Still a hard pull.
But still a hard pull. There's still a spring in there. I'm talking to the Recluse guys. When we put in our other one, there's an adjustable deal like the KTM has.
Yep.
So we can set it at a softer setting. So we're hoping to try that when we put the Apex clutch in. So that's our next step. In our next video, we'll do the Apex Recluse full race setup in here. And we're gonna make it so that we get the softer pull is what we're hoping for. So we'll see how that goes. But overall, the hydraulic clutch, to me, if you have the resources to do it, you wanna spend the $300, it's kind of a no-brainer to give you a better feel than the stock cable clutch, especially if you're a guy that's been riding KTMs and you're coming on back onto a Yamaha. I think you're going to be happier with the hydraulic clutch.
Absolutely.
Race Tech kind of knows what I like and what Spencer likes, and pretty dang happy with this suspension. One shot, no tweaks, no clickers. I wouldn't even know where to adjust.
Yeah.
To start tweaking stuff. Pretty happy with it. The only place I would, maybe is if we get to those really rocky single track stuff. Gonna see if we want to do any clicker changes.
Yeah, or in Green River where it's only
rock.
It's just it's solid rock, and it's got braking bumps in the rocks. So, but that's a very unique riding situation.
But overall, suspension's really good. They really hit it out of the park to where it's not nearly as stiff and all that chattery stuff.
Yes.
And the track we rode yesterday and today, both all chattery.
And some pretty big braking bumps as well going into corners.
So the one today has bigger bumps.
Yeah.
The one yesterday,
a lot of small
choppier stuff.
Yes.
So it's a home run, and Race Tech's done really good. We kind of call it our GP setup, a desert GP setup, off-road desert setup. It's not
full trail,
not a motocross setup, but the GP setup. And it really worked well.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty happy with Race Tech on that side of things. And then probably our last thing,
hangers.
The engine hangers up front. We've been testing with those. We drilled those holes like we showed. We tested it with one bolt. Yesterday we were convinced just one bolt was good. Went back and forth with the extra bolt on the top, on the bottom. Went all back and forth. And what'd you think?
I think 2 bolts, and then in the top 2 positions. Empty bottom hole felt the best. And but at the end of the day, I wouldn't be convinced that if you blindfolded me and then got me on the bike to try it, especially at Glen Helen or somewhere, that I'm going to notice a difference.
It's pretty hard because, but it is really easy to change.
Super easy.
Once you have that right length bolt, for sure taking those braces off.
Yep.
That we did first. Taking those braces off, drilling the hole. It did seem like it's a little bit better that way. So
absolutely,
it's a pretty inexpensive thing to tweak with compared to buying more expensive
new hangers or something. Pie hangers.
So it's something good to play with that you can do. Everything else was pretty basic, right?
Yeah.
So we haven't done everything we're going to do to this thing. We want to add a fan. GYTR has a fan for it, which I think we'll need, especially with me.
Yes.
That was Spencer's thing. It's really
there's no overflow coolant catch can type situation, and there's not really anywhere to put one.
Yeah,
so
you're right. I haven't thought about that.
So we need a fan at least for you when you ride the thing.
I'll be your fan. Number
one fan.
Yep. So we're gonna probably add the fan, which is like $100 from GYTR, and it plugs in.
Yeah.
It's a plug and play. So gonna look at that.
Super
and
easy.
When I do that, I'll probably have ICW strengthen up the radiators for when or if I fall.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna do that stuff. We're gonna do that clutch, and we're gonna do the slip-on muffler from FMF. And when we do that, I'm gonna get with Jamie at Twisted about using the tuner tool to see if we can fix it so it doesn't.
What's a map?
Yeah,
for the popping.
Yeah, if there's no popping. I got a little bit today, more than I had been, and it's mainly when I'm in too high a gear. Okay, so remember, if you didn't see part 1 of the video, our initial impressions, go back and check it out. We're gonna have more content coming out on this bike. We're gonna have a standalone video just on the clutch, installing the clutch part of it. And so you can check that out. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Okay, we've got all of our parts laid out. Always a good idea to keep all your bolts in a little bin here. It's been over a week since we tore this apart, probably a week and a half. We got our YZ450 bolts, which are a different length. We'll get into when we start talking about the engine hangers later in the video. And this is a cool little thing. This is a KTM rubber strap that we're going to put on the kickstand. We'll give you those tips right now as well. The GYTR hydraulic clutch comes with a Brembo master, just like the KTM bikes. It's a 9-piston, which usually comes on a 250, 350 on a KTM model. But on these bikes, they're sending it with a 9 for a 450. Initial feedback I'm hearing is pretty good on these, so looking forward to trying that. And Race Tech always does a good job for us. They know our settings we like. So we're hopeful that this will be even better. There's a lot of content in this video. If you want to get straight to what you really want to see, you can skip ahead. The hydraulic clutch assembly is at this timestamp right here. The gearing swap over is at this timestamp right here. The engine hanger mods are at this timestamp right here. The KTM kickstand strap and suspension install is straight away in the video. Okay, Okay, so here's all we did. You just find a sweet spot right here in the plastic and just drill a hole for it. And you want it kind of snug on there. And then when it goes back on here, we're going to be lined up like this. Now, a lot of people question, they go, hey, my Yamaha kickstand never fails. That's fine, but it's just risky if you're going to get on a track. We don't even strap this on unless we're going to be on a track or some jumps. We're concerned about it. If it ever failed, it could be catastrophic. We have a cool new tool that help us grease this bottom one. They're not greased very well. There's some surface grease on there, but when you turn this one, you can really see that there's just not much in there. So we're going to grease them, get them back on the bike.
Greasing's very important. We have videos showing this in more in depth. This cool new tool we got from this Velocity really helps in greasing that lower bearing when it's already on the stem. If you don't have a cool tool like this, you can pack it as best you can, kind of rolling it and working it in there. And then as you can see the top bearing, we're able just to pack that old school style, I call it, like wheel bearings from your pappy taught you on your truck bearings. Just put the grease in your hand and keep working it around and around and just keep pulling grease out like you see. Pretty simple deal. You want to make sure you do that on these stem bearings. If you have a bike that's at any age, it's good to do it at least when it's brand new to prevent serious damage in the future and keep you from having to buy bearings.
Oh no, it doesn't fit. I get a lot of guys tell me that they have to take the bars off, but in most cases you don't. If you just raise it up a little bit, you can drop it down with the nut in there, dial it down, and you don't have to worry about resetting your bars. Ooh. Okay, so we got our first fork leg in. We have videos more in depth in this, but we give you some tips. We put our fork in. We've snugged up these two bolts. They're not torqued yet. They're just a little tight, so they won't fall. We don't touch these yet, the top ones. And now we're going to set, we want to be about 3 millimeters of distance is what we've been told to set these up from here to here, which is about where we're at. It doesn't have to be exact. What has to be exact is this one has to be the same as this one. So now we got this one set. We're going to measure this and then do the same on this side. So now I got the second leg. I'm just going to barely snug one of these so that I can kind of turn it. I don't want it to fall. First, I'm going to eyeball it and see how close I am, which is actually fairly close right now. So now it's time to measure it. Boom. So that was pretty good by just eyeball. I didn't have to move anything. I was within 4 thousandths. I'm not talking in millimeters like most guys are, but basically that's like 2 human hairs. So that's about as close as you need to be. Many people will just do it with a ruler and not even calipers. Now the order we're doing this is important, believe it or not, or it's easier to work with when the suspension's off, putting the front on first, because then you have your front wheel on while you're working with the shock. And conversely, when you're taking suspension off, it's easier to take the shock off first. You have the front wheel to hold the bike down. So that's why we do it in this order. So we started off with 14, went around to all of them. I'm gonna do like 16.5 on these top ones. We don't go any tighter on these lower ones. You don't have to take the front number plate off, but when we don't, it just is always more of a hassle, us being lazy. These Yamahas tells you which side everything should go to, which is really nice. So you kind of, I would say, American proof. These lower fork guard bolts are very common to be stripped out on used bikes, we find. And there's a lot of reasons for it, but the main reason is people just aren't taking their time, and there are not a lot of threads in there. They're shallow. Really make sure you're squared up on it. Many aftermarket pieces of plastic don't line up. The other key is don't ever tighten. If you get one started, go to the next ones. Get them all started before you tighten them. And then with these Allen heads, we like to use these, these hex Allens. This grip edge has some good tools that won't round off that Allen very much. So I get all three tight after getting them all started. Front wheel install, always have a good amount of grease on your axle, but then wipe it so it's got a thin coat all like that. We have plenty of videos on front wheel install. Overlooked a lot because it's actually very important on your bike to line up your front end so that it's correct. So with me sitting on the ground, I'm much better able to manipulate the bike. Without the shock on, it's a little tougher, but I can still manage. All the way on now, we're gonna tighten down this nut right here. Good and tight, that's it. Now we're gonna tighten these two right here. Now comes the most important part, is tightening these two. Because what happens is, a wheel can get tightened with the fork way out here like this. See that huge gap? Or it could get tightened way in here with the fork going like this. Either way, the suspension's not gonna work well. So this has to float and move, right? And it wants to find its true home. So there's a few ways to do that. We'll pump up the brake, grab the brake. Since our bike's not sitting correctly right now on the stand, it's a little harder, but we can whack it back and forth. We can pull on it. You see guys do different things like this. All those things will help it sit at its home. And that's why you should never hit this with a hammer so you get any edges on here that'll keep it from being able to sit in its true home. Right now, I feel like this is pretty good. We have our tank just sitting in here from last time, and we pull it up, and we're still hooked up. I don't remember if we unplugged it, so we didn't. So we have it sitting like this. And what you want to do at this point is you can have somebody hold it out of the way, or you need to unplug it so you don't tear your connections. I'm going to make this a little tighter because I find that when they come back, and we're going to be riding this mainly with a lot of gear on. So when we set sag, I want to know it's going to be a lot easier to do it. The reason I tighten it up a little bit, it's a whole lot easier to back off sag than it is to tighten up sag typically on the bike. That's the best thing about a Yamaha shock change is you can just drop it right in here. A little bit of grease on this part. You don't want it to gall up. Got a little bit of grease on this shaft right here, and now it's keyed, which is real nice. The top one's tight, so I'm just gonna lift up on rear wheel. If you do it by yourself, it can be a little tricky to lift the rear wheel. Ugh. Okay, so stock, this bike has these plates which go right here, which we mentioned in our first video. We took these plates off, and then these bolts are too long. We did put a spacer here, which allowed us to run them, and we have this much thread sticking out. These bolts were like $5 or $6 a piece from Rocky Mountain using our link, and it's the better length. We're also gonna do a little mod to these plates right now when we get them off. Okay, so right now this bracket goes to these two holes, but they leave this impression here for this hole, which goes right through here. So we're going to use these two holes to hold the engine, and we won't use this top one at all. We'll just silicone off this hole, just block it off. Okay, we got our holes drilled, got a nice little chamfer on there. We already held them up to make sure that it looks like everything lines up okay, which it does. I went through like 3 drill bits, threw them all away that we used in drilling them. I didn't get set up on a mill or anything. It would be a whole lot easier in a nice mill or even a drill press, but this was sufficient to get the job done. There was a surprising amount of water in the frame, which is really a bit concerning. So something we're going to keep an eye on. We had water in our bearing too from our steering stem. So we got all 3 in like that. Good. Bottom one. So with our correct length bolts, you can see it looks really nice right here, right here. Now we have this empty hole right here. Now some people put silicone over this hole. I'm on the fence of what to do, if we just leave it empty or cover it up. I found these little rubber pieces.
You think they'll fit?
See.
Oh my gosh, dude. Look at that. Oh, that thing's in nice. Look at that. So what we're hearing is the teams are running it in top and middle, and we're going to test it here first because we think we'll probably end up with the top and middle, but we'll test it here first, and then we can test it by swapping this bolt into the top one. So Spencer was wondering how I found one so easy. He says it's better than most motorcycle shops you go to because I keep kind of about everything. Have a little, this is like rubber area. These are sprocket bolts, lots of bolts and nuts. KTM, this is only KTM over here in this section, style bolts, big bolts. Okay, we're gonna do the front and rear sprocket. We'll give you some tips on that. We have full videos on just doing this project alone. So the larger front sprocket going to a 14 allows the suspension to work better. Kind of a trick even from the 90s when McGrath was racing. They like to go to a larger front sprocket, allow everything to work better. What we're also doing is basically going down a couple teeth on the rear to help that first gear be better. So we're gonna go with the larger front, but then the bigger rear, which stock is 1350, we're gonna go to 1452 to help even this thing out. Help us be able to have more power and carry gears longer between first, second, and third is what we're concerned about. This should also help out a little bit on top end as well in fifth gear. Lugging as much should help. Okay, right here we have a riveted master link from Yamaha. There is not a conventional master link like you're used to, so you do need to grind this off. Front sprocket. This was slightly rubbing on the chain guide right here, so you just have to get past that point. Washer down right there. A little bit of thread locker, stuck nuts. Okay, this is our cool tool. The sprocket stuff has this cool holder. Okay, we have plenty of videos on sprocket removal and install, but the main thing is heat to loosen up the thread locker stuff. Get some new thread locker that we put on both surfaces. I like to put it on this surface right here and on the threads. So we'll put some low or medium thread locker. A good tool like this grip edge one grabs really well. And then a tool like this. And it's a two-man job, so my cameraman is gonna hop in here and give me a hand. Okay, we're all on. I got the thread locker on each one. I like to then, and as you can see, I have it gooped on there. And I can get them all started by hand before we go tighten them down again. So when I do it by myself, it's like that. Yeah, easy. Great idea if you're in a situation like this to grease or put anti-seize on these. And I like to back the nut off, say to about in this range for when we're gonna adjust it. This is some old anti-seize. It's getting a little bit dried up, but still pretty good. Anybody out there can comment if I can reconstitute this at all with adding anything. So this will prevent serious damage in the future just by this simple thing right here. For someone 5 years from now, won't get stuck in there. And that's as long as it takes to do this. So it's worth doing. Anybody that's had one of these get seized up in here knows, do it now. Wheel back in, got our axle cleaned off and greased, ready to go. And with our chain adjuster bolts up front will give us plenty of area to decide where we're gonna place our chain when we break it. So at this point, we wanna just barely snug it so the wheel can kind of move with a little bit of force back and forth and not just fall around. Here we go, just work the chain around, pretty simple at this point. I have had people put the chain on the wrong side of that guard down there, Spence. Like, it doesn't fit. I'm like, all right. So run it right through there. Okay, so we're at a point here. We have a good spot to cut. Let's back up the wheel a little bit and see where our adjustment would be, Spence. We'll get it back kind of like we're close on adjustment. Put it back there. And you can see we have plenty of room. So this is a good spot right here to cut our chain. So we're gonna go with that spot. We're gonna cut off a few links. Knock that one out of the way, and I like to lay this one down right here. A bit of grease you can throw on there to make you feel warm and fuzzy, but you got grease on your master link like that. I'm gonna put a little bit on this side too. Kind of sloppy. The Pro X chains have proven to be very good, made in Japan. And then I like to get some pliers and just barely get it started before we get our real tool on here. That'll keep it from falling off. Pro Bull Rodeo. We went to one a long time ago, remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, pretty fun.
It was cool.
So we back this off and we put in this bit right here, which is the press part. So there's press, break, rivet. So we could have actually used it to break it instead of grinding, but grinding is more fun and quicker and all that. So now I'm gonna line up here. I'll put this in a good spot where you can see it well in the camera. We're gonna dial down like so. So this tool makes this job really easy. And you don't want to over tighten them. Just get them right there. It gets snug. You can back it off. Pretty simple deal. And again, we have other videos showing more in depth on chain install. So here's one of the keys is you put this on before you try to go, that you know you have enough clearance, it's gonna work and go on fine. Of course, the master link needs to go backwards so it doesn't get knocked off at the front. If you were to put it on this other direction, it would get knocked off with mud and come off. So these pliers are special master link pliers, and they have a little step in them from Motion Pro that really helps. Now, you don't have to have these, but it is a pretty cool tool if you're doing lots of chains. So I thought this was kind of fun. This is all the tools we use just to do the chain and sprockets. It takes a lot of tools. It's kind of funny, but amazing how much stuff you get out. Let's just leave everything out when we do the job. And there you go. It's a lot of stuff. Okay, chain adjustment good. It will break in pretty quick and get a tiny bit loose that first ride. We use just a simple oily chain lube. And we're gonna throw a rag in here. Spencer's got our lines in the same spot and all adjusted nicely. So the Brembo is just like on a KTM model. It's a 9 master cylinder right here. So it's a 9 size piston. Most 450s and 500s on the KTM brand bikes run a 10. So this is going to have a little lighter pull. This is a 9 is what comes on a 350 and 250 models for most of those. We like the 9s on the trail bikes, and we even run them on our dual sports, our 500s, because on the trail bikes it's too much with a 10. So this might be a good option for this bike, so we'll find out. We got the rod unpacked. We have some good instructions right here. So we're going to get to reading these, and we'll give you guys some tips here in a second. Okay, so I've read through the instructions a couple times. Feel pretty good about it. I've never seen it done. It sounds pretty basic. So we're going to start by taking off the clutch system, and we're going to route this the same exact way. So that'll be the first thing to kind of get started on. We're going to go through it right now. Okay, so I'm going to back off the clutch. I'm going to go get this adjuster all the way loose so that I can pop the cable off really easy. Pop out like that. Okay, so we've got our perch set aside. We're going to get the number plate out of the way. I'm going to count the number of zip ties, but it looks like a few. So that's 2 cut right now. Zip ties, we're going to follow it down to here. Here's 3. So 3 zip ties holding that on. Now we're going to remove this holder, this bracket that holds the cable. So we've removed the guide, that held on the cable. And now we just leave these wire clamps that hold on our gear position sensor right down here. We're going to leave that just sitting there just like that. So now we're going to remove this setup for the cable clutch arm right here. So I think this entire piece we're not going to be using. And then this arm we know has to come out based on the instructions. It looks like there's a washer right here that's staying there where it should. That washer stays there from what I understand when I read the instructions. So we're going to get this up here on the bar. Has an arrow for front ways. That's usually a decent gauge for a good starting point. Maybe it could be a little bit that way. Just gonna get it all finger tight right now while I route it and make sure everything's happy. Okay, so I'm gonna tuck it back here where the cable one was. It's gonna run right along that same path. So an important step is this rod has a completely flat side and a side with a little tiny dimple, they call it. So the non-dimple side, the flat side, should be facing out. And I think we had it backwards of that the first time we put it in. So we're gonna drop that in. Okay, this is the O-ring for the slave right here. We're supposed to get this on right now. Here's the bleeder, so just put that on kind of hand tight. So we're not gonna put the O-rings on yet. From what I read of the instructions, just drop it in here and we're gonna place it like this and it can drop over our rod and we can kind of position where this thing's gonna sit. Okay, we're supposed to just get this like halfway on right now before we position the hydraulic line. I've got something in here that's around 4 millimeters thick or so. And I'm gonna tighten this and that's gonna keep this from pushing in towards the case. So that seems about how they want it to sit. And that would allow you to be able to pull the cover off and it's sitting out. Okay, so we're tight on our banjo. Now we're gonna pull the slave off and build it. I'm not totally sure why we couldn't have done that at the beginning, but we're following the rules here, team. First thing we're gonna do is put a little bit of brake fluid on our piston here. And then I'm gonna put the O-rings on, just like that, one at a time. I didn't have to stretch it over the other side. And just get a little bit on this surface right here, just like that. Just like that. So that feels pretty good. Okay, now we're ready to put it on for real. Okay, now we're gonna snug here. You can torque these to 10 Newton meters or 7.4 foot-pounds. So now we can tighten up here, which is an 11 millimeter, the most popular wrench in my toolbox. Just good and snug. And this thing, I was noticing this line turns in here, so that's gonna allow it to find its good home so it's not out of shape down there. Chain guard engaged. I see the marks here from the past zip tie, so I'm gonna go right to that same spot with all three of these guys right in here like that. Remember when you cut zip ties to use the flush cuts so you're not cutting your hand later at another time. And then I like to kind of just tuck this ugly head out of the way. I'll tuck it back here. Doing my second one right here. Third one, I see our mark here from before, right in here. Radiator bolts engaged, right there. So we're gonna fill this up a little bit. Use good hydraulic, like brake fluid. We're gonna bleed this first before we do our final bar position of everything. Okay, we got fluid coming out now, which is good. We're gonna do it like this for just a minute or so. Whoa, yeah.
Yeah.
So that has more to do with the spring down in my foot.
Down my clutch.
Yeah, I definitely don't think we could run a 10.
Nope.
Okay, I was wondering about that. That was our biggest worry was, could this bike really need a 10?
It's pretty hefty.
Okay, hold it in. Let's do one more. Yeah. I'm good and tight. I'm gonna contact clean off all the brake fluid around here, and then I can put our cap on down here. Okay, so we're dropping her on, and it's gonna overflow a bit. This system can be topped off. Okay, we were all positioned, and then I realized, hey, I should put on my Works connection piece while I'm here. They make a rotating bar mount, and the advantage of the Works connection piece is it has some plastic on the inside, so it's more likely to move a little bit on a crash or a fall over. Okay, so the Vacula definitely made that job a lot easier. In our links on our Google Doc and our Amazon links, there are versions that are much cheaper than this one that we have used with no problem, like $85 for a good pneumatic brake bleeder. Helps a ton. If you're working on bikes a lot, if you should be bleeding brakes often and flushing them, so I would suggest having a good one. We're not even fully warmed up yet. It feels pretty good.
Boom. Oh.
Hydraulic clutch in these rocky trails. Feels really good. Way better than cable clutch.